Take a good look at this image. This isn't edited. It's the real Egypt, photographed from space. Endless desert on the left, endless desert on the right, and running through the middle, a thin thread of green. On that single line live 110 million people, packed together. 95% of Egypt's land is completely empty, not even an ant out there. Yet almost the entire population lives on just 5% of the land, a strip that in some places is only 15 to 20 kilometers wide. And here's the most unsettling part. Egypt's survival depends on a river that doesn't even begin in Egypt. It starts in another country, 2,000 kilometers away. And that country has now built a dam right at the river's source. So the question is, how do 110 million people survive on just 5% of the land? And why does the remaining 95% of desert stay empty to this day? To understand Egypt's reality, you first have to understand its geography. Egypt barely gets any rain at all. The capital, Cairo, receives only about 25 millimeters of rainfall a year. Now compare that. An ordinary desert region gets 150 to 200 millimeters of rain a year. That's 7 times more than Cairo. Let's find out the whole story.
In southern Egypt, years can pass without a single drop of rain falling. And where there's no rain, there's no farming. Without farming, there's no food. And without food, human life becomes impossible. Over 90% of Egypt's land is part of the world-famous Sahara Desert, where summer temperatures climb past 45 degrees Celsius. No rivers, no lakes, and groundwater that sits deep underground and is dangerously salty. But there's exactly one exception in all of this: the Nile. The longest river in the world, flowing straight through the heart of this dead desert. For thousands of years, the river's floods deposited a fertile layer of silt along its banks, so fertile that ancient Egyptians could harvest 2 to 3 crops a year. And that's exactly why one of the world's oldest and greatest civilizations, the pyramids and the kingdom of the pharaohs, rose up along the banks of this very river.
A Greek historian summed up Egypt in a single line thousands of years ago. Egypt is the gift of the Nile. But alongside this blessing came a massive problem. The Nile was wildly unpredictable. Some years, the flooding was so severe, it washed away entire villages. Other years, the flood simply didn't come, and severe drought and famine followed. For thousands of years, Egypt's survival hung on the river's mood. Finally, in the 1950s, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser announced the most ambitious project in the country's history, the Aswan High Dam. The United States initially offered to fund it, then backed out. In the middle of the Cold War, Nasser turned to the Soviet Union for help and built the dam anyway. The construction gave birth to one of the largest artificial lakes on Earth, Lake Nasser. But the cost was steep.
So the river was under control. Did that mean Egypt could finally build new cities across that empty 95% of desert? Egypt tried, but it didn't work out. In the 1990s, they launched the Toshka project. The plan was to cut a canal from Lake Nasser and create a second Nile Valley deep in the desert. Billions upon billions of dollars were poured in, but people simply refused to move there. Today, that project lies buried in sand, little more than a memory. Egypt then began building a new administrative capital in the desert outside Cairo at a cost of $58 billion. Africa's tallest tower now stands there, and government ministries have relocated to it. But for ordinary Egyptians, living in this new city is far too expensive.
The result? The desert has kept turning people away, again and again. And that thin green strip has only grown more crowded. Today, Cairo alone is home to nearly 20 million people. But the real danger facing Egypt isn't this overcrowded green strip. The real danger lies at the Nile's source. Look at a map and it becomes clear. About 85% of the Nile's water never actually originates in Egypt. It comes from the highlands of Ethiopia, roughly 2,000 kilometers away. And recently, Ethiopia built Africa's largest dam on this very river, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD. For Ethiopia, this dam means electricity for millions of its people. But for Egypt, it means handing the key to its own survival over to another country. Egypt has called this an existential struggle and has even raised the threat of war.
110 million people are packed onto just 5% of their country's land, entirely dependent on a single river. And now, that river flows through a dam built by another nation. Egypt's emptiness isn't just a story about geography. It's a warning for every nation that survives on a single source of water. Water isn't just a natural resource. For countries like Egypt, water is life. Water is everything. What do you think? Will this fight over water one day turn into a real war? Let me know in the comments. And for more stories like this about the world's most fascinating geography, make sure to subscribe to the channel.